Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated.
And it's another episode of Nerds Amalgamated, and this week we have a guest. We have a guest in our midst, a very, very special guest. Isaac Fox, the founder and creator of Astral Ticket Comics.
Ed guest might be more appropriate, but yes.
It's the most backed and most funded Kickstarter comics in the history of the largest city of America.
I will point out that is technically factual, but
Hey.
it sounds really good, and it is technically true, but Jacksonville, Florida is the largest continental city in the United States by square mileage. Places like LA, which LA County has more people than all of Jacksonville combined. So it's not that it's the biggest, like New York, LA, Chicago, those are all much bigger cities, but Jacksonville city limits go way out to the middle of the swamp. You can drive for just about 2 hours in the city and still be in the city of Jacksonville.
Okay, nice.
So it sounds a little fancier than it is, but not to mislead anybody. Like, it's true, but there's some caveats.
So, are you a NFL man yourself?
No, I actually, as weird as it is, I'm not really a sports guy. I used my previous job before this was I worked in professional sports as an for IT stats on it. I'm not allowed to say what all I did because I saw you sign up. There's a bunch of NDAs you sign.
Yeah,
What I
that's
can
fair.
only thing I can say is I have worked with the National Hockey League for NHL. I have worked with the National Basketball Association, the NBA, and I have worked on various professional tennis events, including the Australian Open, which where you guys are. And I've also worked
Nice.
on China Open, a few other golf events, which golf is extremely strict about saying who we did and did not work for. So I can't say what they were. They were professional golf events. So if I had to pick a sport, I do like basketball, but I don't really watch football very much anymore.
So speaking of basketball, did you watch the recent All Stars game?
Bits and pieces. Part of the problem I have is that I have a very short attention span, or I'm always busy. So
Yep.
part of this job, there was once, if you want a humorous story, I had a guy come to me one time at a table. I was at a convention, and he was a very fit, good-looking man in a Batman costume. And had with him a lady who was the embodiment of the goth girlfriend meme. Very attractive young lady. I was like, oh, okay, he goes, dude, how do I do what you do, man? Like, all right, cool. Is that your girlfriend? Yeah. All right. Do you have friends? Oh, cool. Do you go to sports and stuff? Hey, do you go to bars? Do you play video games? Do you have friends? Get rid of all of those right now. Break up with her right now. You don't have time anymore. This is your wife now. This is all you do. Get rid of it. So that's kind of what happens is I can catch parts of a game like on the side monitor, but I'm just usually so engrossed in work I don't get to watch the whole thing. The reason that we did a while back when my basketball team won the championship, we do have a piece of Azumi wearing a very stylized version of their uniform, so we can't get sued, but inspired by.
Nice. So, okay, so you were saying about your work. So, what is Astral Ticket Comic? Let's start with that one.
We are technically qualified as an independent comic publishing company. The caveat of that is pretty much anybody who's not Marvel or DC gets classified as independent, including Image, which is made up of a lot of former Marvel and DC guys and indie professionals. So I don't know if I call that pure indie or not, but the industry does have its own classification. We are just a small comic studio based out of Jacksonville, Florida. For the most part, 90% of everything is done by one person, and you're looking at. That being said, the art is not done by me. I don't do anything with the artwork. I have done lettering. I do occasionally do that. I don't enjoy it particularly, and I'm probably not very good at it. But when needs be, when the siren goes out, I have no choice but to step into whatever role the company may need at the time. For the most part, I do everything except art. So that's what our company does. We just make comics. We distribute them. We sell them. We are our website. Most of our comics are funded via Kickstarter. We did try BackerKit. It was okay, but Stripe didn't like us there, so we're not going to be on that platform as a main feature again. It'll be all through Kickstarter as it continues, unless things happen, in which case we will try to pull what Mr. Polito with Coffin Comics did and switch to a pre-order system, which probably won't work for us, but one day maybe.
So, how did you get into this role, like being the big honcho of Astral, doing all
I
the
don't consider
work and
myself
all?
the boss.
You don't
I
consider
consider
it?
myself I consider myself a servant to the artists and the readers. That's all I am. My job, you kind of everybody answers to somebody, no matter who you are in the world. And in my case, I answer to my artists. I hold them accountable. They hold me accountable. My editors absolutely hold me accountable, and the readers hold me accountable. And I appreciate that they do that. Actually, as
Mm.
far as how I got into it, it was really a wild adventure. Of I in college, a colleague of mine started an independent game studio and kept asking me to come work with him, and it took about 6 months to convince me. And finally, I said yes. We ended up working on a project, and once it was finished, the company that ultimately ended up buying it, we had to sign NDA, so I'm not even allowed to say I worked on a role in the game. It didn't really explode in popularity, so it's not a big deal, but I'm not allowed to say what it is. And that was coming from a background where, you know how some people are born just really good at stuff. Like they go out to they all got to the soccer field and they can just kick the ball everywhere. You guys go play rugby and they can just truck other guys. You know those guys? I wasn't one of
Yeah.
those. I wasn't one of those guys.
Oh.
I had to struggle to do anything average until college, and that's when my brain decided to turn on. That's when I went from an average person to a dean's list student. But it was that experience of working on that game company that taught me a lot. My friend who was in charge of it ended up getting sick and being hospitalized for about 8 months from a severe illness, and he said, "Hey, can you take over while I'm gone?" So now I was 21 years old, managing about 30 plus people, which was I was nowhere near qualified to do that job, but somehow we finished everything on time, and the company that we ended up buying our product was very pleased with how we handled it. So that was kind of the experience that said, "Hey, you know what? You don't totally suck at everything you do. You actually do have the ability to see a project and move it forward." I had been writing for a long time at that point. I got my start by writing commissions. I can admit it now. I couldn't admit it then. Most of my money was made off of being commissioned to write dirty stories. It wasn't my choice. It's just
Okay.
somebody asked me to do one, and then it spread like wildfire from there. So, "You're gonna give me money." I was in college, I was hungry. If you are a college student in America, I don't know if it's the way in Australia or not. In America, if you are a college student, you are a third-class citizen. Everybody hates you and nobody wants to help you. So I had to take what I could get. Moving
How
on from
dirty
that, I
are
learned what I could do. Go ahead.
how oh, sorry, it's like, how dirty are we saying here? Like first base, second base, or third base? Just curious.
One more time? I don't know if I caught that in time, I'm sorry.
How dirty are we saying here? Like your
Oh,
story
it
to
was,
get.
whatever they requested, as long as it didn't involve anything underaged, I was fine with it. And or any of the, let's just call it the R word, because I know that, certain algorithms don't like hearing that word, which is understandable, it's a bad word. As long as it was consensual of age actions, I was okay with it. With some caveats, I think there was a few things people asked for. I was like, "I don't that's not gonna." But I moved on from that to writing. I'd been started working on what is now Cremisi for a while as a novel, and the novel was written terribly because I had not yet to go through all my writing classes in college and learn what the heck I was doing. But when I finished it, I realized that nobody reads books anymore. Some people do, but not the mainstream. And the original idea was, what if I make it an animation? And again, this is very green, just fresh out of college, me, who did not know that animation. The last animator I talked to for good animation was about 4,000 US dollars per 1 minute of animation. I don't
Oh.
have that kind of money. I especially didn't have it back then. So, okay, well, I can't do that. But I like comic books and manga a lot. Could we do that? And it kind of took on that toll with Cremisi, which evolved over many, many meetings and time with that book. And it turned out after working on that series, issues 1 and 2, I went, I really like doing this. This is enjoyable. And I got very lucky that I just so happened to live in a town with a comic shop. It just so happened that one of the owners was friends with and eventually got a job with Stanley Lau, aka Archer. I won't say his
Ah.
name. I don't want to throw him under the bus. He's a good guy. I hope he's doing well. I haven't seen him in years. He moved out of Jax, but I learned a lot from that experience. And then my good friend, who's now no longer with us, Kitsune Windsor, she taught me a good deal on how to work with artists, how to find them, how to coordinate with them, how to really kind of play ball with them a lot better than I had been doing. Some of those artists I still like Neela Fox. I still work with her, who was originally one of Kitsune's artists. Turned out I liked it. I really enjoyed the job, and then I kind of saw what a lot of people were doing on Kickstarter. And went, wow, I felt like wow, we made $4,000. We're really good. And I go on like, oh, this guy made like 50. What am I? But my work looks just as good as his. What's the difference? And there are differences, of course, but it went from there of okay. I was told, well, why don't you try other stories other than just this one? And that's kind of where Pure Intent came from. Was the idea of another story that wasn't Cremisi as the prequel. And then we started around the time of Cremisi number 4. We started playing around with more risque covers, not very hard, just very soft core, just toplessness, nothing very extreme. And we got a lot of positive responses to that. And people asked us, could you do more content like that? Well, I kind of always wanted to write a story about succubi, but I never knew how I would go about doing it. I'm I'm not ashamed to admit it. I love ecchi anime. I think they're great. It's hilarious. I think it's funny to me. Some people, I'm sure, do see it as legitimate pornographic material. I disagree. I think it's just comedy using what I'd consider adult humor. So I started writing Select You Busted, and as the record shows, that is my most popular series. And it went, oh, I thought I'd get like 100 backers. This one has 600 plus. Okay, this is going to be a whole nother ball
Wow.
game. And it just kind of took off from there. And it turned out I liked what I was doing. At the time, I finally had landed a decent job, and I was working in IT for professional sports in the US and Canada, and even some stuff overseas. And then what happened one day is I got very sick, and I went to my doctor, and he goes, "Hey, you're burning your candle at both ends. You need to pick one. You're sleeping 3 hours a night, and you're working two full time jobs. You will be dead in 5 years." And so I made a choice. I chose to go with Astral Ticket. I stepped away from that job about 3 years ago. I don't regret it. And sure, like I don't make as much money as I used to, but I don't care. This is everything I want to do. And thanks to the amazing backers that we have and the readers such as yourself, I hope to continue doing this till the end of my days,
Oh
which hopefully
yeah,
isn't very soon.
oh yeah. I've been loving your Cremecy comics and the Pure Intent comics. They've been fun to read, to be honest.
Thank
Like
you.
I started rereading the Cremecy comics. Man, I wish we get more. I wish we get more late in the.
Cremisi and Pure Intent are the only books I've written where there are two scenes. I'm like, I could go back and, but that's all. I'm sure everybody who's ever created anything in their life goes back and says, "Oh, I wish I had known to do this better, or this and this." I'm sure even who'd we consider the masters of comics who hasn't been hit with a sex scandal yet? Tom King, maybe. I don't even know. Everybody's like it's like the trendy thing to do now is to get one.
That was
Alan
it
Moore. I'm
recently.
sure.
Oh, Alan, no, Alan Moore, no, no,
No,
no.
he hasn't had any
Uh,
scandals, but I'm sure there's a lot of times he looks back and wishes he could have done things a little bit differently in some of the books he's done. When he has a lot of titles that, while controversial, are considered legendary in the comic market.
oh yeah. There was a recent one. Neil Gaiman, that's the one that's recently.
Yeah, there was Neil Gaiman, and before him it was Warren Ellis, and then
Oh, Ellis got hit.
yeah,
Oh, damn.
that's why he wasn't on Castlevania anymore.
Oh, you
That's why
kidding
the
me?
writing of Castlevania just totally changed after like season like two, I think, because he was no longer allowed to work with
Oh,
it.
oh, okay. Ah,
Like everybody likes to do that nowadays.
it's that's the funny thing about the comic book industry. It's just it's a journey, but at the same time, you have to be mindful of what you're doing.
You have to think about things you wouldn't normally think about.
Mm,
Part of this goes to anybody who does content creation. You throw yourself into the light. I didn't personally want to do that. I never wanted anybody to see me. I wanted to be, Dr. Oz behind the curtain kind of guy. Turns
yeah,
out when you don't have enough money to hire very attractive full time personalities, you have no choice. I tried never showing myself or talking, and we got a lot of people saying, "Well, who's actually behind all this stuff? We want to see the guy who's making it," which I'm weird, so I don't see that myself when I look at content. I'm like, I don't want to see the guy who wrote this comic. I don't want to know what he does. I don't care what he believes or who he's with. I just want to read a good comic. But a lot of people want to get to know more about authors they like. And I suppose as I've gotten older, I understand a little bit better. There's works like Berserk, which I'm a huge fan of. I like learning about Miura, the history of how he did things, Toriyama, all those guys. Like,
yeah.
where did they come from to do this? But I don't want to see them stream and talk to me. But some people do. So I had to start doing that.
I because the funny thing is, I remembered the first time I actually saw you was actually from I don't know whether you're familiar with Comics to Movies with Sean.
Yes, they're also in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The first time I actually saw you, you were with Sean and Steven in a live stream, and I saw you, and I was like, "Oh yeah, check out our content." And you were talking about Cowboy Bebop, and you were kind of hyped for the live action Cowboy Bebop.
No, I was
Um,
not opposite. They were hype. I did not want to see it, and I will still go on record saying it was an abomination. And whoever thought that was a good idea should not only be not allowed to work in Hollywood again, they shouldn't be allowed to work ever again. It was a terrible idea.
the creative limit.
No hate to the actors. They did this is purely aimed at the suits in power who made the decision to do it.
Yeah, the creative liberties screwed that up so badly.
I just saw some of the scenes with the writing. I thought that never happens in the show. Nobody ever addresses Jet based upon his race, or anyone in the show for that matter. That outside of I think maybe once they discuss where Faye's from on Earth, which makes sense for her background story, but we never go into that for anybody because in the future no one cares.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know why the writers chose to do that in the live action, but I'm not a Hollywood guy, so maybe there's a reason. I don't know.
I so I'm curious to ask though. So since so with your comic book journey, so from from working from your game development days to what you're doing now, do you ever have like observations of the mainstream comics and go like, you know what, I'm glad I'm not part of the mainstream comic world kind of thing?
Oh, my degree's in journalism. Yes, absolutely. Like that's why I don't do that job. That's why I'm not a journalist, because that exact
Mm,
reason. You will be told. I think I worked for very briefly in radio, and you were told how to phrase everything and given no time to do it, and
mm,
it was all shaped for you. You didn't have it. You could not tell them what your opinion was or what the facts were. You had to do what your boss told you.
mm.
I have looked at mainstream comics today, and I think it's interesting in that in the atmosphere of the United States right now, especially people on all sides of whatever of the issues are equally angry at Marvel and DC. Um,
That's an
which
achievement.
is a shame because there are some really impressive writers, artists, and creators that work for Marvel and DC. Fantastic people. But at the end of the day, the guy who gets to decide whether or not your story gets published or not is wearing a suit behind a desk and counting money. So he's going to make that decision.
So it's not so it's not the editor that has the final say, but the suit behind
The editor
before.
has a lot of power,
Mm,
but the editor can't say we're going to spend money on this. That's going to be probably a board. I don't know how Marvel and DC do it. I really don't. I imagine it's a board of guys, girls, or what have you, that sit all in very expensive suits, sitting at a table, who make
mm.
that decision. Because technically, DC is owned by Warner Brothers, and Marvel is owned by Disney, two massive juggernauts of media entertainment, who own most of the entertainment you see, or most media you see on the planet. So I'm sure that they have a team of people who go through it and they've done market research and psychologists and what have you. I only pay attention to them though because them messing up is good. As much as I love Batman with a burning passion. I love the X-Men deeply. But the more they screw up, the better it is for me because people are not going to suddenly not want comics, manga, or fictional characters. If anything, we're seeing a renaissance of that now. We're starting to see like things like Invincible that are adult comic book cartoon. X-Men '97, which is not, I'd argue, might be a little bit more mature than the original run, but it's definitely still something that I think some kids, if they were to watch it, may not understand some of the concepts. But the more they make mistakes, the better, because people who enjoy that content aren't going to just drop the content; they're going to look for it elsewhere. And the market that can fulfill that void is the indie market, not just me, but anybody. We're seeing that now with more people showing up to Kickstarter and crowdfunding websites that come around and say, well, I really like this thing. I want to read more like this. Right now in the US, it was last year, was the first year in American history where manga outsold comics here on the home front.
Yeah, I saw
I'm
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not super happy about that. Like I love manga, but I kind of want superheroes to be the thing that we have. It's part of American culture. I truly do believe that Superman is part of identity of who we should all try to be. A good, they have all this power, especially as the US does, but choosing to do the right thing, always putting the man before the super. That's something I thought was a great lesson from those comics. But
Well,
we aren't seeing as much of that now, which pushes people more into the indie market and to the manga market, especially the younger generation.
what do you think of like the when you look at like the American superhero comics, for example, like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and all that from both of the comics, and when you see like let's say My Hero Academia and One Punch Man, for example, do you ever see like they're co- they're doing the Japanese comics are doing something better than the American comics, and the American comics are doing better than the Japanese comics. Do you ever see something like that?
We steal from each other constantly. We always have.
Hmm.
When manga kind of got its kick in Japan is because after the Second World War, soldiers came over with Disney comics. Disney was king of comics back then. They still are. They always have been. And they said, "Oh, this is cool. We want to do a thing like this." And that kind of eventually evolved into what we know as manga today.
Yeah.
And they took ideas from our comics. We take ideas from them, and we go back and forth. I'll use the Last Airbender as an example. When that show was on, that show was heavy into anime tropes, but
Yeah.
that may be one of the greatest American cartoons of all time, in my opinion, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Going to comics, even Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans run, which was now considered to be a legendary show. Its
I
theme
re
song was sometimes sang in Japanese by a Japanese band. The tropes used in it were anime tropes. They did the big eyes and all the effects in your eyes, like not pop out like Looney Tunes style, more anime kind of style. The sweat drop on your head with the little mark on it. They did all of that,
oh
and that's
yeah,
pulled from anime.
I started rewatching Teen Titans as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, we never see this in like modern cartoons now. Like, what the hey?
Not only that, but My Hero Academia is a love letter to American comics. If you've read the manga, like the first or second page has Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine on it. They're shadows, but if you know the character, like they're pretty distinct outfits, intentionally so. It's made to be kind of a homage to American comics.
Hmm.
We learn from each other because of that. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Um, Manga may be a little more popular in the sense that I think manga is faster, and I don't have to go back 500 issues to find out what's happening in this timeline of the X Men when I go to manga,
Oh yeah,
unless
yeah.
we're talking about One Piece, in which case I don't know if you'll live long enough to read all of One Piece, but more power to you if you can.
I would need some anti-aging serum just to
I
get
think
through
you
it.
would, but some of them do run a very long time, which is
Yep.
fine. Um, I feel like manga does something. One advantage manga has over here. I think a lot of independent comics are doing the same thing. Even if you have a slice of life manga, let's say like you have, I don't like slice of life, so I can't think of one. But if you have like slice of life, its primary
Mm.
target audience is Japan, where it's made. So for them, this is a slice of life from what is your everyday. But Japan is so alien to culture in the United States and probably much of the West that a slice of life still feels like a massive piece of escapism from the reality of your life. So I think that escapism definitely plays a role into people getting into that, trying to get away from the things that they're unhappy about. Whereas American comics are have kind of pushed those issues a bit. Part of the reason why all the comics that I do are take place in fantasy, even Suck You Busted, which is technically taking place in Jacksonville, it's a fictional version of the city. It's not the real thing. Because I, for one, personally prefer the escapism. I don't like things that are grounded in reality.
Oh yeah,
Reality
yeah.
sucks. I've lived in reality for years. It's terrible. Wouldn't recommend it.
It's like, why do I need to be constantly reminded about real life issues of the comic book that I love? Why?
Yeah, I just want to see Joker get punched in the face, man. That's all I'm trying to see. Like, just I want to see Batman do that or something stupid like beat him in a surf contest. Like, I don't care. Just like let me do that. I don't want to see them have a debate over the geopolitical climate of whatever. No, I'm good. Thank you.
So your comic books, the Cremisi comics and your recently your the one you Kickstarter recently, Pure Intent. So
Yes.
what is the comic entirely for those who are not familiar with the Cremisi?
Cremisi was essentially what I started off doing as a passion project, and I didn't think I would like this job as much as I did. It is a space western science fantasy where it is about an alcoholic spaceship captain and his sexy virtual sidekick as they end up inadvertently saving the universe. That is the elevator pitch for what that series is. In reality, that series is a very dark tale of PTSD, alcoholism, abandonment, abuse, anger issues. Nobody in that story is happy. Period. Even Alice, as a computer program, who you've seen her on a lot of covers, she's not happy, and she's a computer program. Nobody in that story is happy because happiness doesn't really make the best of stories. The story deals a lot with redemption, ideas of revenge, and being better than you think you can be. Also, combined with the idea of being the hero others need you to be. An unfortunate reality sometimes what we become in our lives is not 100% our choice. We become what someone else needs us to be. Most common example of this: if you have kids, you have to be a parent to your kids. You don't have a choice. Well, I guess you do, but the good choice is to take care of your kids. Uh, Kind of like that. Pure Intent is a prequel, but not prerequisite to Cremisi. I haven't said publicly how they tie in. I'm curious if anybody can pick up on it. There are clues peppered throughout Pure Intent 1 through 3, but I'm not sure if anybody's seen them. Uh, Again, that one's also technically more space western science fantasy, leaning more into science fantasy than the western side of things. But that story follows a group of kids who've been enslaved by a pirate clan and are forced to kill each other for sport. And then the lead kid, who's been blessed or cursed, depending how you look at it, with a special power, they use him to finish off the losers as a big spectacle. Despite all of this, he maintains a pure heart and he wants to actually save his fellow youngsters from this fate. Not only them, but he wants to stop all this kind of cruelty from happening in the universe and suffering as a whole in the universe. But unfortunately, the path to hell is paved with pure intent. So, where does
The
he make
Pure.
that mistake?
I gotta reread that now just to figure it out. So how did you come up with with those themes? By the way, with like the PTSD, abandonment, and all that? Was that from your
Life.
personal? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So from your
Yeah. Pure intent's actually like I don't I feel like a Kickstarter page is kind of like a recipe when you go to look up a recipe. Like you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to know how to make like this kind of like mango chicken tonight. I don't want to see, oh, when I was a child, I grew up with my mother and we had mango. I don't want to see your life story about mango chicken. Just tell me how to make the mango chicken, please. I kind of do the same thing on my Kickstarter. I was like, I don't want to. I'm not going to go with the whole backstory. Like, oh, why pure intent so important. Here's a different environment. Pure intent is a deeply personal story for me. Myself coming from a not so pleasant background growing up. So that's where that pulls from. Is a lot of the unhappiness. That's one reason why when we meet Shay and Kremisi, he's a massive alcoholic because I myself have been a heavy drinker at a point in time in my life. It's a fantastic way to treat PTSD, but not a good one. It feels effective, but it's not. Uh, so pulling a lot of that from things that I've experienced in my life. Kremisi was a story I wanted to tell because I was inspired heavily by Outlaw Star, which is the least popular of the three big space western anime, being Outlaw Star, Trigun, and Cowboy Bebop. But Star was more fun than the other two were. Star also had a thing that I very much enjoyed, where our main character wasn't trained by a super secret assassin. He wasn't from some alien race or born with the power of a demon. And he's just a normal guy. He is a regular guy. He will cheat. He will lie. He will steal. He will stab you in the back. But he's not evil. He just needs to take care of himself. I felt like that's a relatable kind of character, and I really enjoyed that. And when I was growing up, through the nightmares that I grew up with, when Toonami was running the shows it ran, they helped me kind of escape from that mentally,
Yeah.
and Outlaw Star did it the most. So I thought, I wanna do a story kind of like that, but hopefully I can do for somebody else what those stories did for me. It kind of pulled me out of that, at least for 30 minutes a day during the weekdays, I was able to get pulled out of unpleasantries of reality and escape into that. And a lot of times that actually inspired me. I still go back and listen to the openings to that show, narrated beautifully by Bill Bellingsaw, who's Jet in Cowboy Bebop, with one of the
Oh,
lines like, "A boy has the right to dream." Like all these things, I think is really aimed at young men that we don't really get told growing up. And hearing that even from a character who's in a fictional show was just a massive boost for me in my morale. So that kind of inspired me to I want to do that story. I want to tell a story kind of like that, of a character who's just been plunged through horror in his life and thinks that it's over and is just waiting for death, but life may have other plans. And part of that I wanted to do. Kremisi hasn't gotten to that point yet because the story's longer than it should be. But was to help people see that, hey, the things that have happened to you don't define you. You can be better. You can pull out of it. It's
mm,
not easy, and it's always going to be there, sure, but you don't doesn't have to define you. That's what I wanted to do with C. And Pure Intent, kind of the same way. Pure Intent was a bit more of the prequel to get into what Kremisi does, while at the same time trying to focus on emphasize the idea that just because your intentions are good doesn't justify the things you may do to achieve.
because I like how, because as I said, I've been reading the comics, and yeah, you're right. It does have the whole element of like, let's be hopeful and just be, and yeah, you may be downtrodden right now, but there is always hope at the end. Because you look at modern comics nowadays, it's just always gritty and just, it was like watching a
Alan Moore blames himself for that. He
like
says everybody tried to copy what he did, and it's definitely a problem. I think with Marvel, I don't read much of their comics, so no offense to them, they just never really resonated with me the same as DC did. I
mm,
support them both by all means, like support our local homebrew comics, but DC definitely in their comics decided to see like everything's just dark and gritty and dark and gritty, and we saw that a little bit in the movies. And
yeah,
thought, man, if I read a Superman comic, I want to put that comic down, feeling like there's hope for like I could be a better person because Superman chose to be a better.
yeah,
Wonder Woman's had some runs in the last couple of years that have been amazing to do that. Just very much emphasize like you can be better. You can choose to make things better. You can't save the world, but you can make a difference in your world and the world of those around you. And I love those messages. And I know that I write a lot of, demon butts and things like that nowadays, but the idea is still that, make the world a better place on a small scale. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to do. Take care of yourself, take care of your friends, your family, and the world will get better over time.
yeah. And the crazy part with it is that sometimes like that message always gets lost in translation. It's like,
Easily.
yeah, it's like, crap, really? Do I really need to look at that? I'm downtrodden as it is.
I mean, I'd argue a little bit of Dragon Ball kinda does that, where Dragon Ball is very
Yeah.
positive, with Goku himself is a mega positive character. He's brain damaged, but he's a mega positive character. We get into Dragon Ball Z, and things get a lot dumber and darker at times.
Hmm.
I say this as a person who loves Dragon Ball Z with a burning passion, but it definitely gets a little silly sometimes. Has its moments where things are kind of like, "Wow, this feels kinda hopeless for a little while."
Yeah.
But there's no conflict, there's no if the heroes just dominate, then there's no conflict, so why am I even watching it? They're just gonna win every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you mentioned
So,
One Punch Man, that's the genius of One Punch Man, is the writer figured out how to solve that problem. We
just
have
one
a character
punch.
who always wins, but we treat him, but now society's his enemy. How do you battle your image? You can't just punch that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to remember one episode where he destroys the comet, and yet people still hate him for it. With with One Punch Man, and man,
Yep.
it's a tough battle. Yeah. With
That's No, you're good, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like with modern comics, I like how Cremisi, it's a breath of fresh air in terms of, yes, I'm getting sick and tired of seeing the greediness of it. I feel like sometimes the writers are just copying what's trending now. Like if Game of Thrones is trending, let's make comics like Game of Thrones.
You
That
mean how
kind
when
of
The
feel.
Matrix came out, every single movie that came out after that had bullet time? Like every one of them? Yeah, it's definitely in their defense, trends exist for a reason, and there are always gonna be a team of marketers, probably for a company that's been hired by a by whoever, a third-party entity that gets hired to do market research to
Yeah.
tell us what's hot right now. What are the kids into? You see that heavy in the game industry, where if one kind of game becomes popular, something what 100 like it just pop up. Like
Yeah.
Soulsborne is now a genre because of they made their own formula for it. Comics and manga does it bad. Manga's like everything now is every single you go to any I'm not sure if it's the way in Australia, but in the US, you go to any store that sells manga, and you're gonna have an entire section of books that are titled "The Time I Tripped Down an Escalator and Broke My Neck While Wearing a Toga and is isekai'd into another world as a lizard." Like that's
Ex-
like half of them because isekai is trendy
exactly.
right now.
Yeah,
Isekai is
exactly.
hot, so we all go into isekai. And the question is like, when I took writing in college, they told us that there's no new idea. Don't try to come up with a new idea because you can't. Everything's been done already. What you can do though is take pre-existing ideas and combine them into a new amalgamation. So that's kind of what you do with everything now. The Mandalorian is really just how many old classic westerns rolled into a with a Star Wars skin, but it works. It works really well actually. They put a good spin on it and it's a people can resonate with it.
the
Fantastic.
the season, I'll agree with you, but then later on, it just felt, what the hell, guys. So I agree with you
I
there.
just like Pedro Pascal, so I'll just watch it. He shows up again. I'll just it's easy. Like, yeah, I just want to see like more of that classic Western standoff thing because we don't really make Western movies anymore. And I
Mm.
grew up in a household that was big into classic Westerns. So, Hang 'em High and Tombstone, all that kind of stuff. So like I want to see more of that again. And this is the closest I can get. So you know what? I'll just and then Fallout came out, which was again very much in the same vein. Like, okay, I'll ride with this. This is fine. This is I'll take what I can get for now.
What did you think of Tarantino as a Western guy? His Western movies.
Uh, I've only seen bits and pieces of Hateful Eight was good. I enjoyed that one.
Hmm.
I did not see the remake of Magnificent Seven just because I've seen Seven Samurai, the original, which was fantastic,
Yeah.
and I've seen the original, Magnificent Seven, the original cowboy film, which is again fantastic. Long as all get out, but fantastic. I haven't seen the new one because once again, time is a problem. When I watch movies now, it's on movie night in the Discord servers when I get to see movies now. Other than that, I don't really watch them anymore. I don't have time. It took me what 2 months to finish Frieren, and that's with my
Oh
partner constantly
shit.
telling me to watch it. Like, watch Frieren, watch Frieren. I'm like, okay, we'll watch like an episode for like maybe 10 minutes of an episode tonight, but then I gotta get back to work. Or I'll put on this if I can find it in English dub, which I'm not having the dub versus subs argument. There's no argument to be had. Whatever you like, that's all that matters. But dubs are nice when you have to do other things than just watch and read. So I can put that up and do something else at the same time. That's how far. I just finished Free. That's how far behind I am on anime. Like, even that, like, just don't have time.
Oh,
When I first started this job, I started meeting professional artists, guys, DC, Marvel, Zenoscope, big name boys, and I learned that like none of them read comics. They
oh
don't read.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. I saw a video the other day. Someone wrote like for the MCU shows. All these MCU writers, they all were like, "Oh, I was told not to read the comics. I was told
Yeah.
I never read the comics." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that's a
You
studio
are."
decision because they want the comic division and the movie division to be different. In their defense, some things don't translate from one medium to the other.
Hmm.
The End War thing with Thanos actually having a love affair with Death. How are we going to explain that in one movie? That's going to take all. It's so much easier to say he's just trying to save the universe and he thinks he's the hero when he's actually arguably is or isn't,
Yeah.
but extremely guilty of hubris. We can roll with that's much easier to explain in a movie format than it is sit down than it is that, oh, look, Death is real. Here's this whole story about her and what she's about, and he's in love with her. That's a little harder to digest for an hour and a half, or sometimes 2 hours in a film. Especially when you make a movie, from what I've been told, I haven't worked in movies, but I know people who do. It's that you have to go into it assuming the audience doesn't know the backstory of anything. So if we write like a copy of Spider-Man, you already know the Uncle Ben story. You know
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you like Spider-Man. You know who he is. We go to X-Men. You know that mutants are seen in a very negative way in society, and you get that. But if I just say, "Hey, man, here's this new Spider-Man movie," to somebody who's never read Spider-Man, they might be like, Well, how did he become this guy? Well, now we have to explain it, which creates 1,000 different versions of Ben getting killed or 1,000 versions of the Waynes getting killed. And that's where it comes from because you have to assume that people coming into this don't know it like comic book audience. If
It's interesting. Someone also told me with Uncle Ben, like every time they do Uncle Ben, he gets older and older, and Aunt May gets younger and younger, which
Yeah,
makes it even weirder.
it's
I'm
kind
like,
of
what the
weird
hell? Yeah.
because in the
It's
comics
like,
she's usually like I guess like in her 70s. Like she's definitely an elderly lady in most of the comics. But then in the show, they're like the movies are like, yeah, what if she was younger and like really hot? Let's just do that. Well, okay, I guess you got to have somebody for Tony Stark to perv on. So here we go.
oh, I'm like, oh, you guys are gonna make it totally wrong for everyone.
It's
Ah,
also the fact that it's looking how mainstream does things versus is very
hmm,
mainstream has to appeal to a massive audience, in part because the budget they spend is so high. If I'm spending, 80 million to 120, $200 million on a film, well, first off, my investors, which all these companies publicly traded, they want that money back. So to get that money back, you have to hit as many targets as possible, meaning I have to make this as broad as possible. What's the easiest way to do that? Make everybody attractive. That is the easiest way to do it. Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, all of them very attractive people. So we Jason Momoa, any of those people, like we pull them out because they are good looking, and we know people will go just to see them with their shirts off or in tight outfits. Cool, that's a fair bet. On the indie world, we don't have to worry about hitting millions of people. We aren't spending $50 million on something. Maybe somebody is, but not me. So we don't have to worry about that as much, which gives us more freedom and more power to control and choose what we do. Uh,
but then
and
you
that
get,
comes down to individual vision.
but then you are technically beholden to your backers, in a sense. Like,
Yes. Well, there's a thing I've told people when they ask about doing Kickstarter comics. There's a simple question. Do you want to tell the thing you're passionate about? Cool. That's an easy one to do. That's easy. Do you want to make money doing it? That's really hard, and you're probably not going to do that for years into the job unless somebody who's already established comes out and steps up the bat for you to make everybody like you. So it's a
okay,
little kind of depends on what you're trying to do. In my case, I started off with it as passion and it became a business, but I also got lucky in that Stanley Lau, aka Archerm, told people to like me. That's when my stuff jumped because I got lucky. That's a different thing altogether.
because the comic book industry in the West, for example, it like for indie and mainstream, it is cutthroat from what I've seen, isn't it? Like,
Entertainment in general is you
yeah,
entertain the rule of entertainment is you don't have friends. You just don't. They will somebody well, entertainment's also the only industry in the world that's allowed
mm,
to discriminate legally. At least in the I don't, again, I don't know other countries. In the United States, they can. In entertainment in America, they can go, yeah, you're too fat, you're too thin, your beard's ugly, or you're the wrong color. They can do that in entertainment because they
holy
have this
shit.
term called target audience and they need the cast or whatever's they're making to hit that target audience. And that requires certain kinds of people, characters, environments, what have you. Independence, we don't have that quite as bad, but mainstream entertainment does, which is why you hear these horror tales about models not being allowed to eat anything but a piece of celery once every 2 days, something like that. That's where it comes from
Damn.
because they're allowed to do that. I don't know if you guys, do you guys, are you guys familiar with a restaurant chain called Hooters? I don't think they have those overseas.
Yeah, we used to have. I don't know whether it's still around, but yeah, I'm familiar with who this. What about you, Professor?
Yeah, I know what they are.
Yeah.
So they got sued many years ago by a guy who applied to be a waiter, and they
Oh
said no.
shit.
And he sued them for discrimination. Well, you're not hiring me because of my gender. That's discrimination because I'm male. Hooters won the lawsuit by coming out and saying, no, 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 we aren't in the restaurant business. We're in the entertainment business. Oh, then you're allowed to choose whoever you want.
What the hell?
That's the semantics of law and how you
Holy shit.
there's a lot I've had to learn about how certain laws work and who they apply to and who they don't apply to, and it's annoying sometimes. That's one reason why we started pulling away from cosplay covers, where we're not putting our characters in other characters' uniforms anymore. We'll cosplay our own stuff, but not as much like we used to. Like
Because of
Pure Intent is probably the last one you're going to see that.
so it's because of copyright and stuff as well. Okay. So
It's lawyers are getting more aggressive, and the
mm,
reality of it is we are right now, which is fantastic. We are in the time we are in the birth of the indie. Indies are taking over taking big money from major industries. You see it in video games, you're seeing it in comics, you're seeing it even in film places like YouTube. People make independent films on YouTube that are better and more interesting than Hollywood stuff. You're seeing that now, which is great. However, that also means you're getting more lawyers' attention because
oh,
now you're making money, and making money gets attention. And it may not always be the attention you want. I've never heard of anybody getting pinched too hard on crowdfunding, but it's only a matter of time as we continue to grow and more people net gravitate towards crowdfunding sites that we're going to start having lawyers perusing it looking.
Oh
I
man.
know they're not now because I have seen projects that I know absolutely darn well if the company who owns the characters they're putting on that knew, they'd be sued into the ground. But
Who's the biggest culprit that you've encountered that have done it?
I won't name anybody specifically, but I will say there's a group on there, and they're on there again right now. It's like they're on our blacklist, so I keep an eye on what they
Oh,
do.
oh
We
damn.
keep a list of groups we don't talk to. They made a set of metal of trading cards and phone cases that were marketed as League of Legends characters, and it was League of Legends characters, all made by AI.
Oh
Like,
no.
if Riot knew this, you would probably be in jail because Riot is owned by Tencent, and Tencent don't play games.
Oh yeah.
You have probably made somebody but we're so small at the moment that we rarely draw that kind of attention. And those kind of projects aren't making enough money for them to probably even care if they saw it. It's kind of like if you guys go to a con, you will see tons of fan art being sold of Goku, Chi-Chi, Vegeta, Batman, you name it. And any of those companies could walk into a convention, just hand out cease and desists. And I've
Yeah.
heard it's happened, but it's not common. And the reason for that is A, you're not making enough money to hurt them in the first place. They don't really. B, if you're at a convention selling a fan art of Goku, you are essentially just giving that company free advertising. I'm not saying don't do that because that's fine. But Toei Animation and Bando Namkai looks at that and goes, oh, well, people will buy fan art of Goku. They'll also buy the DVDs of Goku. They'll buy the
Mm,
Blu-rays. They'll buy the T-shirts. They'll buy the official merch too. And a lot of people do.
yeah. It's fun. It's interesting. You mentioned you touched upon AI for a second. When you said the rise of indies, are you also seeing? What do you think of the rise of AI as of now? Like seeing
Oh, we are
it.
strictly against that.
Oh, I agree with you.
We are
I've
aggressively against the use of AI in that. AI is I mean, it's not going away. I don't mind AI when you use it as a joke. That's fine. Like there's a website called Suno that makes AI songs. My friends and I use that to make fun of each other. Like, hey, here's a song about that time you died playing Helldivers. Like, like that's fine because you're not making any money off of it and you're just having fun. You're messing with each other. That's fine. It's totally fine. There used to be one called 15.ai, which was I think an MIT professor who made it and took it down. People were starting to make money off of it. He wasn't wanting that,
mm,
or she. I don't know the person who actually made it. I've just seen their profile. And we used to take that had the My Little Pony characters on it. So we would make them say things and just send them to each other. Like, hey, you're like foul language included. Like, hey, why don't you go suck my tail or stuff like that? Things like not that friendly, but far worse. Like Pinkie Pie telling you to go, blow yourself. I'm like, okay, that's hilarious. Nobody's making money off of this, and that's fine. I don't mind it when using it as a reference. I haven't done it yet myself. I probably should. When you're trying, like myself, I can't draw. I'm starting to try to learn, but it's hard to find the time. But if I'm telling an artist, hey, I want a cover or a piece, and the character needs to be doing this, and the angle should be like this, that's hard to describe if you don't know how to draw. I can do a really crappy stick figure drawing, and luckily my artists are amazing and can figure that out. AI can be useful for that. Sometimes we'll find pictures online of AI artwork that's I shouldn't use the term AI artwork, they call it. And like, oh, this is a good reference for this pose or this outfit or this angle. Let me grab that and I can show this to an artist later saying, hey, let's do something kind of like this, but with an actual person making it. I'm fine with that. That being said, as far as anything for profit goes with AI, no, there is no. I'm okay with that. And anybody who shows up on Kickstarter and is making a comic with AI, meaning you didn't draw anything because you're probably like me and you can't draw, I am of the persuasion that you need to get off the platform and get the hell off my Kickstarter platform. Get off. You don't belong here. If you can't draw and you're making a comic and you're not putting food in an artist's plate, get the hell out. Period.
have you seen stances of of those though? Like people
Oh,
using
absolutely, absolutely.
really? That's
Oh, you can scroll through Kickstarter and it's easy to tell. AI is easy to spot for the most part. Sometimes a little tricky, but for whatever reason, a lot of AI, which I wish I could get Kickstarter or some kind of government entity to come after this, because a lot of the AI they give the girls these very immature faces. So she has the face of like a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old
ooh,
with a 25-year-old's body. That seems suspicious in a lot of ways, and I don't support this. Someone needs to stop this.
hmm.
But I've seen Kickstarter's allowed it. A lot of us have petitioned them to take it down. They haven't done that. What they do have now, though, to their credit at least, is that you do when you create your project now, there's an entire section that comes up that says, hey, are you using or do you plan on using AI in your project? And you have to say yes or no. And then on your page, there's on that little column on the left over there that shows like, the kind of quick index. It will have a thing saying use of AI if they chose to use AI. So you have to be upfront and honest about it. If you lie about it, I understand that is an offense and your campaign down.
But then the question would be if even if they say like it's kind of like those like when you visit an adult site and you're like, are you 18 or
Oh, that
over?
doesn't stop
And
it.
yeah,
That don't stop anybody. And now they're trying to make you have your ID to do it. Like, I always upload it. Plus, you can get this stuff anywhere without. You can get it. The internet exists. It's easy to get anything you want on the internet. Come on now.
yeah. It's like
It's a
go.
it's Kickstarter in their defense are caught in
Hmm.
on one hand, comic books are one of the least earning categories in the entirety of Kickstarter. We don't make
Oh,
as much as the tech guys and the board game guys. No, they make way more than we. But we also have the highest success rate of any, which is why these AI guys are showing up. Because as soon as that data gets out, it's like having the video game. Like are you familiar with the video game industry in the 80s when it just collapsed?
I've vaguely heard about it. And what about you, Professor? You heard about it, right?
Yes, I have.
Games became popular. Everybody who had a suit and some money invested in making games, and the games were terrible. Everybody hated them. Retailers then refused to even mention video games or had them in their stores, and then Nintendo came along and saved everybody.
My favorite part about that gaming crash is that they actually just buried hundreds of copies of ET in the desert.
Yes, they did, because it's considered the worst game ever made, next to probably Golem. That's probably up there as well, from what I'm told. And Redfall, I hear, is also up there.
Oh
We're down there, I
yeah.
guess, in this case. Definitely some. But that's what happens, though. That's what's going to happen with the comic section of Kickstarter. We have the highest success rate. Oh, hey, I have no morals and I like money. Let me just go on here and type in some prompts and pump out an AI comic, and let me go look what everybody else is doing and just mimic that and slap that on here, and I'll just make $2,000 for absolutely free and do nothing.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, that's happening. It's happening now. It's going to create problems down the road. It's going to be annoying. Kickstarter is caught in a rough spot because, on one hand, you have this going on, but on the other hand, you also have bills to pay. And Kickstarter, if we don't get Kickstarter only gets paid if we succeed. Other than that, they get nothing.
Hmm.
So if these projects are succeeding, and even if they're making just a little bit of money off of it, that adds up to enough, they're gonna look the other way. They're not gonna
It's
take it. They're not gonna go after it.
it's
Not if it
interesting.
not if it's paying them.
It's interesting you mentioned that because what was it the other day we had an episode where the US Copyright Office said that AI generative art it's
For a while, they said you couldn't copyright AI made anything. I don't know if they've changed that now by now or not. I'm guessing somebody wrote, if they have, somebody probably wrote a couple of checks and made that change.
they said
Yeah,
that
the
AI.
latest ruling is that it can't be copyrighted.
Good.
Yeah.
And I agree with that entirely. That's why. Well, it's nice to. It's something that's very, very nice. It was
Hmm.
a good surprise. Was that I've always thought that people are just going to take people. Don't, a lot of people who consume content don't care where it comes. They don't. Not saying everybody, but some people don't. Hey, your iPhone was made by a 4-year-old who gets whipped every day. Yeah, but I love my iPhone. Okay, well then you don't care. Some people do, some people don't. Not putting anybody down. Not my job. But my concern for a while was like, well, is anyone going to care that's made by AI? Because as long as they're entertained, are they really going to care? And the answer is yes, they do. Because every company that does it just completely gets a wave of hate from consumers all across the board saying, we don't want this. We don't want AI made. We don't want this garbage. People now on Steam, if you go to video games on Steam, look at the reviews. If I want to buy a game, I'll read the reviews on it. And a lot of people will say, hey, this game has AI art in it, so therefore it gets a negative review. Cool, won't buy it now. And I see people doing that, and that's great. Keep doing that. You guys are heroes. Thank you for that. You are not a hero. You are a cat. You just keep attacking me. Here, you want to answer questions?
Aww.
I see.
Hey, you spotted.
He's very talkative.
Speaking of comic the with the AI with the stuff in the comics with indies and mainstream comics, crashes and stuff. A lot of people have been saying for a while now, like, "Oh yes, the mainstream comic book industry is gonna crash. Like we're seeing a big
They've been
crash."
saying that since the 80s. Like,
There is,
they've been saying that forever. That's
yeah.
nothing new. It doesn't make the money it used to. No, not at all.
Hmm.
And it's not, and the golden age is over for sure, but it's not dying. We're not losing. We're going to see, especially with Diamond going under now and being auctioned off, we are going to see smaller studios that relied on Diamond and comic book shop sales are going to probably disappear or switch to an online presence only. Yes, that's probably going to happen. Superman is not going anywhere. The X-Men are not going anywhere. It's not going to happen. In part because they're backed by multi-mega corporations. Disney owns Marvel. Disney
Yeah.
is one of, if not the richest company on the planet. They are not going to let Iron Man die. They're going to say, hey, if the sales drop, they'll come up with a new plan. That's what they do. Regardless of how evil we think Disney may or may not be, they are very good at getting people to buy things, and they're always going to figure out how to do that. Same for Warner Brothers with DC characters.
Yeah.
Why do you think like the animated Batman animated series, the most legendary superhero cartoon of all time, was a giant marketing campaign to get you to like Batman, buy the comics, and buy the toys, and it worked. And they'll find another one eventually.
The same with the Doomsday comics. Yeah, the same with the
Yeah.
Superman Doomsday. Yeah, yeah. I remember that. Okay.
Well, it's like a TV show. Oftentimes, a TV show adaptation is not made because, well, the guys working on it do it because they love it. But somebody who approved it back there is wearing a suit, going, "I can make money. I will
Yeah.
buy this." Or we can turn this like Transformers. Love Transformers. Transformers was a giant marketing campaign to get you to buy the next Transformers toy that came out.
Yeah.
Gundam. As much as I love Gundam, and I'm a huge Gundam fan, the original Gundam has a Monster of the Week format, and why? Because they want you to buy the kits for all the monsters that come out. That's all they're doing.
You still
That's
build
fine.
them? You still
Uh,
build?
hold on. Hold on. All of that up there are all Gundams and mobile suits.
Hey,
All of it.
nice, nice, nice.
Not as much as I used to. I used to build them a lot, but again, time is a problem. I don't build them as much as I used. I actually haven't built one now in years, but I have a cabinet full of a backlog of the heavy arms and the Alex Gundam. A couple Zaku's I need to build, but time's a factor.
Yeah, I got, my recent one was a Sinanju, and
Ooh,
that took a while.
that's
Oh,
Sananju's a big boy.
oh
That's a
yeah.
big serious boy.
It's a
Oh,
HG quality though, so it's like not
well,
so
high grades
big.
not high grades are fun. I can
Yeah.
do that. When you get to the perfect grades, I'm not doing that anymore. That's
Well,
too much, man. There's no way.
their prices jump as soon as you go to like PG or MG. You're like, oh, okay, yeah,
That
yo,
was it's Gunpla shares a thing with comics where it seems like it's a cheap hobby until you get into it enough and you realize it's not a cheap hobby. It builds up pretty fast.
it's the
Not as
same with
bad as like Warhammer,
Warhammer.
where it starts.
Yeah,
That
Warhammer. Yeah.
that is a hobby where I don't know how anyone affords it.
Yeah.
But that being said, Games Workshop, if you're listening, I think you guys are you convinced people to pay far out the wazoo for a piece of plastic they have to build themselves, glue themselves, and then paint it themselves. You do nothing almost. That's amazing. Like kudos to that. You can and it's not like you just convinced a small hobby. Like there are millions of people who love that. Like kudos to you guys. That's impressive.
It reminds me of that. There's a like one of those wealthy YouTubers. They said that most of the companies you see nowadays, they sell the idea but not the product, and
Yeah,
that's
that's what it is.
I think that's what we're seeing in most of the aspects of our lives, like with comics and anyways.
Oh, it's an idea is valuable. It just
Mm,
is. That's why you can copyright intellectual property. Everything that Ash Ticket does before you guys hear about it, it's been copyrighted by it. The Manticore is our upcoming book. Yeah, I've had the copyright on that for like 2 years now. Succubusted, yeah, that was copyrighted. Creasy, yeah, that was copyrighted. All of that's been done because you have to. It's a neat thing in U.S. law where technically, the second you create something, you technically have a copyright on it. That's a little harder to back up in court, though. It used to be. I don't know if it's the way or not anymore that you could, when you came up with an idea, you could take it and you could put it in a box and go to the post office and mail it to yourself because then it has a stamp from a federal institution, the government, saying it was shipped on this date and never open it. So if anybody does try to steal it, you take that to the court. Like, look, open it up. Okay, this is stamped by the USPS at this time on this date. Oh, this is the thing that he says he owns, and you had it 2 years for it. Okay, yeah, no, it's yours. I've been told that doesn't work anymore. That might have been like an old school method. Now you just I think it's not very expensive to go on the U.S. government website for copywriting and just copyright everything, and we do that now. I've never had an issue with anybody stealing anything of mine. I don't think that happens very often in the indie market. I've only ever heard of one person ever getting pinched, and that's because somebody tried to make AI made cosplay covers of Lady Death.
oh no,
Um, that
that
is Brian Polito's work. That is the number one name in independent comics as far as crowdfunding goes. Who I can't say how much he's worth, but it's a lot more than six figures. Yeah, they're going to come after you with a lawyer for that, and he did. But general rule is you can't cosplay other independents' work without their permission. I wanted to do on Last Foxy Vacations, a Shantae cosplay, but Shantae is technically independent, so I can't. So instead, we went I Dream of Genie because that's a similar outfit, but nobody who worked on that's going to come after me nowadays.
yeah, can you imagine the actress who played the genie coming at you, going, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?"
You can cut that sentence saying the actress who played Genie coming at you, and the answer is yes. But the genie outfit is generic enough now that it's been used as kind of the backbone of a genie outfit for women for so long that
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think
okay.
that no one's going to care at this.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like some of the covers we've done, like you can tell exactly who the character they're cosplaying is. We have to be more careful with that. I did have people on Cremisi number two's Rebirth when we had Maria dressed as Ino from Guilty Gear come at us saying that we were stolen the character and we're trying to claim it as our own. Like, no, that's okay, but no, that's a cosplay. We don't. This isn't Ino. This isn't. And that's when the rule that was that the result of that because everything in Independence experience. There's no school to do this.
Hmm.
Is that okay? Characters can only cosplay a character now that they obviously aren't that character.
Okay.
That became the new rule. Like, okay, we can put Alice in a similar outfit to Mount Lady from My Hero Academia, but we're going to change the colors up, make sure she has her tail in her ears, and it's obviously not Mount Lady. Okay, we can do that. But I can't take somebody like, let's say, I couldn't take Izumi and make her look like the KDA version of Ari because they look too similar. They're both blonde fox girls. Like, someone's going to get mad at me. Let's not do that.
I'm curious to ask, being a business owner, do you ever get that? Being a business owner of do you ever get like conflicted at times with like, oh, I want to be I want to do, I want to do a certain character in this certain outfit, but then I don't want to get but I don't think that will work, and that kind
All
of
the time. All
all
the
the
time.
time.
All the time. You have to, so there's a thing of you have to understand when you're writing a comic is are you writing it for you or are you writing it for your audience? If I was writing it for me, there would be a couple changes that probably was popular. And that's okay. I still like what I get to write. One reason why Rhoda has shown up, you used to remember the Foxy Vacation had a cover of Rhoda, who is Rita's incubus twin brother. He becomes a main character in the next arc of Suck You Busted. Spoiler, not really though. But the caveat, like I always wanted this kind of character to put in something, but I can't make him a fan service because a lot of my readers wouldn't appreciate. So instead, we'll make him comical in his behavior, not in his fan service. So let's make him a horn dog, and that's the comedies. He's always trying to sleep with everybody. That can be funny. We can work with that. So you find ways to take things you like, but then kind of adapt them into what your audience is. My
Hmm.
job, I consider it to be to make my readers happy. If someone walks away from one of my campaigns, one of my books, and they're not happy, I have failed that person, and that makes me bad. I don't want to fail you. Anybody who spends their hard-earned money on what it's part of the reason why we started. I came out with new price caps. Now a regular cover that doesn't have foil, max $30. If it's 30, it has to be like really risque to be allowed to push that price point,
Hmm.
or numbered or something special to it. Things like that. When it comes to characters I want to do, like a little bit, like you kind of find ways to adapt them into what your audience is looking for, to work around with that. But a lot of times tastes interlap, so it's okay. I would like to do a story that's a little more all ages friendly. We have one that I have a script we've been working on slowly over time that's for that. And so the caveat to that was like, we'll just make some of the characters on certain material, not quite as kid friendly, but we'll make sure the book itself is. But a lot we you guys have seen our server. I do a lot of polls. Azumi and Brooke talk to a lot of our backers. We want to know what they're interested in. We get their feedback, and we base things off of that. The series we have coming out next is the Manticore, which I can't express how excited I am for this series. It's built 100% off the feedback from our Kickstarter backers. It was built from the ground up for Kickstarter by Kickstarter. And that's not to say that I didn't do things I don't like, because I like everything that's in that book right now. I like all the characters. For an example, one of our characters in that, she is now the chestiest character I've ever created, but she is also an 8'3" Oni. Hey, I'm 6'1". If I meet a chick who's taller than me, that's impressive. Like, whoa, this is kind of cool. Let's go with that. Sure, why not? We have a dark elf. You know who's hot? Elves. I like elves. Everybody likes elves. They're always hot. Cool. We'll go with that. And it doesn't bother me. I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. I don't ever sacrifice my integrity for what I write or create. I don't
Hmm.
believe in that. So I'm not going to write something that I feel like is wrong. If anything, I subtly put my opinions in the books that I do. You may notice that in a lot of the books, the humans are like never the good guys ever. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge fan. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Like, yeah, if you just kind of look between the lines, you'll see like every now and then I kind of like, hey, these people are bad because they're humans. Or Suck You Busted is probably right now one of my favorites that I've had a chance to work on. That book isn't etchy, but it does tackle some real issues. But part of the point it makes is like just because you're a demon, which in this universe, not necessarily depending on there's a billion different versions of demons depending on the story you go into, but in this story doesn't mean they're evil. They're like everybody else. They have free will. They can be bad, they can be good. Which one do they gravitate towards? Well, it's up to you to figure that one out. And it's like that with humans, with people, good or bad. You got to figure it out, which what people want to be.
So you still we got some lightning round questions.
Sure.
You got time for 'em? Good.
Oh, go right. Yeah, you're fine. Go right ahead.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't. It's end of campaign time. I'm not going to bed. I don't have
Okay.
time.
Hey. Okay. Actually, before we go for the lightning round, I do have some question. I do have one more question. So, where would you like to see the Astral ticket go in the future? Like let's say 5 years from now, where would you like to see it
That's a
as a
really good
company?
question because you asked me that question 5 years ago, I'd have had a different. So when Succubusted 2, which is my current record hold, had 665 backers. Not six. We needed one more for 666 in a book about demons. We are so close. Would have been absolute legend right there. But uh, that the took me because most of the shipping and stuff is done right over here. So that took me probably about 4 months, not including the process of getting surveys filled out, waiting for checks to clear, waiting for cards to charge so I can actually afford to print the books, getting the books printed, getting them sent to me. The process of packing and shipping them took me like 4 months by
Yeah.
myself. And that was about the time that I ran into the health issues. I was doing that so much. And the doctor was like, yeah, you can't stay up for like 10 hours straight just packing comic. So at a point in time, I'd have said, yeah, I want to get as big as possible and make six figures every campaign. And now I'm kind of like, I wouldn't complain if that happened. I'm still going to work towards that goal because I believe in always trying to improve and be better. But at the same time, if I never hit that, I'm not going to be mad because there becomes a fine line. 'Cause what I do to point out is a business. This is my job. This is how I pay for everything. It's how I feed the cats. How I do all that stuff. There is a line between success and comfort. So if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I did a run that had 1,000 backers and made like $80,000, there'd be a whole new thing to tackle because I could not feasibly pack that by myself. It's not. I mean, Benedita, we do have a shoe manager. She helps out sometimes, but she's not full time. So I figured, well, how in the heck am I going to do this? That would be a learning. If I could achieve those kind of numbers consistently, like some guys do, I think I'd be fine with that because at that point I'd be able to rely on being able to bring in some staff and some people to help out and get things done a lot faster and more efficiently. So getting to that would be nice. I think every creator dreams of that Netflix deal. Well, maybe not Netflix. I hear they're pretty bad. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, whoever it is that would be publishing animations that goes, hey, Shona Jump or somebody goes, hey, we want to make this into an anime. I'd be like, awesome. That would be the biggest goal. I think that
Okay,
there are
what would be the net? Okay, what would be the network that would just go? Okay, Hulu. Imagine Hulu comes to you, like, "Hey, we want to
yeah,
make
that'd
your
be
show."
the only problem to that is the person who gets screwed the most is the guy who actually created it. every time. Uh, every time the person who creates the guy who gets screwed the hardest. That's why we don't see Friday the 13th anymore because the guy who wrote the original one is in court fighting over the rights.
Oh
Uh,
shit!
and every single guy I've met in comics who is now independent, who has worked for a big company, has given me the exact same advice every time, and it's don't go to a publisher, don't talk to those companies. They're going to screw you. It was shocking to learn one of the guys told me that if he went to a convention for his book, and this was a book that was in every store in the country, overseas, international book, very
Mm.
famous. I'm not going to say what it is. I don't want to put him on blast, but he's a good guy. But he said when he goes to when he went to conventions, he had to buy his books from the publisher to be allowed and to bring the con and sell them himself.
Are
He
you
didn't just get them
serious?
because he made the book, because he wrote it and did all the art, but he wasn't allowed to have the book to sell it. He had to have he had to buy them from the publisher each issue individually to be allowed to do.
Okay,
So
just
that's
send me the message. Though, send me the title of my DM. I'll have
well,
a
he's
look.
on. He's one of the bigger Kickstarter guys now, but he told me don't ever talk to these companies. It's the creator gets screwed like that until you have a name. You don't have any power. Like if Stephen King comes out and says, "Hey, I'm going to make this show," well, they're going to do whatever he wants because he's Stephen King. Like, okay, whatever you want to do. But if Joe, everybody goes, "Hey, I made this thing," and the network goes, "That's a really good thing. We'll give you like the base value of $70,000, and you can go screw off."
Are you
And meanwhile, they turn around and
serious?
make several hundred million off of the idea. That's what happens.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've noticed something like that with the Witcher series from
yep, that's what
Netflix. Like,
happens. Well, in his case, he
oh,
signed a contract that screwed himself over, but he didn't because he didn't know what video games were. But that he signed it. Part of the problem with that was he signed a contract that said like they could do like certain things and have power.
yeah.
But he
Apparently I remember his wife was really mad at him after he signed that.
yeah, because it turned out to be really popular, and I guess he didn't. That happens sometimes though. Things that you don't think will blow up do. I'll go back to Disney as an example. Lion King, which is argued to be the best Disney film of all time. I'm not taking a stance on this. I'm saying what people argue about. It's a fantastic film, even though if it is a stolen idea.
Mm.
Lion King was worked on the B team because Disney believed it was the crappier film. The A team worked on Pocahontas, which no one talks about and is probably highly controversial today.
Oh.
There you go. There's an example of how even big studios can do this. It happens. Animation would be the dream, and depending on the series, I would probably have to think about, like, I could take the not a lot of money for this solely because it would just elevate my brand and everything I do outside of it.
But the problem if you were to take it to the animation side, they would take a lot of creative liberties, like
Oh, they would. Absolutely.
because your stories, from what I've read, they're really raw. Like they're raw, they're really
Oh, I don't pull punches.
impactful. Yeah, they don't put it doesn't pull any punches. You're right. And then you look at and then if you try and do that into media aspect, it's like, oh, do we really want to do that? Like, and it, like that it'd be that direction, or it would
They
be
have more
oh
to worry about. What it comes down to is private company versus publicly traded company is another thing people don't think about.
mm,
If you're publicly traded, you are obligated, I think even required by US law, to increase value to your shareholders as much as you can, meaning you can't take risk. I know films have had it a different way. Films, apparently, one of the things I've learned that they had a problem with was that it used to be that you had DVD sales or VHS sales after the movie was out. You made a bunch more money off of that. Doesn't happen anymore. So the film itself is your one and done, and it better make its money back and then some. Otherwise, you're just screwed. And you
and
have
now it's
investors that are mad.
yeah.
The whole thing.
And now it's just the now it's a movie streaming. Like
Yeah,
if your
exactly. That's
movie
why,
does,
because they don't make as much money off the streaming anymore. They
yeah.
used to. Now that Netflix has taken that big chunk of change. Amazon's taken it. Somebody else has taken that chunk of change. Anytime you make any money doing anything, everybody shows up with their hand out, going, "Hey, where's my cut?" I can tell you that Uncle Sam's big about that. Kickstarter does it. Stripe do it. They all go, "Hey, you made a lot of money. Cool. Where's my share? Come on, pay up." It's like being in a mob. Pay up. No, you just pay up.
Oh
No, you don't have a choice.
shit.
Pay up. That happens. And if I had if there are three things that I've wanted to see in my job. The one is an animation would be great. That's not likely, but hey, maybe one day you never know. These other two things are much more petty in comparison. The first was to see somebody cosplay one of my characters without me having any or telling somebody it just happens. That has happened. The last big show I did, I think I put in the in our dinner fan server. A girl showed up dressed as Rita from Suck You Busted. She fit the build of Rita perfectly. Very beautiful young lady, fit the outfit amazingly. And yeah, she definitely fit the bill and had no qualms about wearing that little bit of clothing, pointing out that what she had underneath that outfit was only a black string. And yes, you could see it. Cool.
Oh.
That was me standing at my table in tears, just so like touched and amazed that someone would do that. The other one is even pettier than that, and that is when I start finding porn of my character. I'm not saying do that. What I'm saying is we work now with a lot of people who are hentai artists. We don't make hentai ourselves because I have about that, but we work with a lot of guys who do. And hentai artists, a lot of them have their own Patreons. They have ways to make money off of what they do, which they have a right to do. Put in, but they don't draw that content of characters that aren't popular. They're only going to draw the ones people like. So one way is to keep track of what anime is hot. Follow like 5 different artists on Twitter or X or whatever, Blue Sky, wherever you want to go, and just see what character they're all drawing. They'll all be drawing the same character at the same time. Oh, guess what? Squirrel Girl is really hot from Marvel Rivals. Now I see her with her
Rule
clothes off
34
everywhere
stuff.
I turn. Now I see Sue Storm everywhere I go because she turns out to be the current hot waifu, and you'll just see that. And they don't draw the ones nobody cares about. So as a creator, if people are drawing that of your characters without your input, that means you are popular enough to garner that attention. So it's not so much the content of I want to see, it's the reason for. So if I could get those three things would be the end, like the big boy goals. With one thankfully off the list, the other two, the animation's not likely. The other one is
Oh, I don't know.
it might happen.
You could get a fan animations. That might be.
We have one. Well, not for animation. We did do an animation for Cremisi #5. We did do that, which was an eye-opening experience because I thought that I was under the I was wrong, which I've been wrong many times. Don't get me wrong. Every Kickstarter I do, I learn. Sometimes I try things that don't work, and every time I try an idea that doesn't work, but I try some ideas that do. That case, like, hey, look, if we have an animated trailer, that's gonna make like 50K. People can be like, oh, these people actually it's really in depth, and no, that did not happen. It did not happen at all. Uh,
It comes down to if you're big enough that the animated trailer would work. But then,
Pretty much. It's you I think a lot of people I know I do this, I've made this mistake, and I probably still do make it. You make the mistake of comparing yourself to people who are just massively bigger than you, and that's not fair to do.
mm,
If you are making manga and you go, "Well, I have a manga that's really good, but everybody just talks about Dragon Ball Z." Well, yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't try to be like Dragon Ball Z. It's not gonna work.
mm.
You need to pick somebody, and that's a quality for sure, but on Kickstarter especially, don't go on there and look at the guys that make six figures, 100,000, sometimes a million on certain campaigns and think, I need to do everything they did. No, you don't. Plus, if you try it, it may not even work because I've done it. It didn't work. I thought, oh, I'll do things like, certain people that I look up to and have been kind enough to mentor me a little bit over the years. I'll do what he does. And it not work at all. I'll get a great example is Mr. Ryan Kincaid, who's a fantastic gentleman. Love Mr. Kincaid. He does a lot of covers that are very Western style, but he puts his girls in like he had one run. He put like a bunch of his girls in the Mortal Kombat girl outfits, which class the MK outfits are beautiful, very sexy. And he made bank off of those. I did it, not so much. Different audience. That's what it came down to. The server's been a great place for me to learn that, where a lot of people have told us they don't read comics. They want manga, they want anime, they want waifus, they want that kind of content. And we are a hybrid of Western and Eastern ideology and methodology. So okay, so I don't. So that's one reason why if you've seen like the last like couple campaigns, Western style covers don't happen anymore because our audience didn't resonate those. They weren't picked up as much. Meanwhile, you can go over to Mr. Kincaid again, but in his comics, and those things just fly off the shelf faster than you can blink. Different audience, and
Ah.
it took me a long time to get my head around that. I thought I was failing, I wasn't good enough, I was stupid, everything I did was wrong, this is my fault. And it's like, no, it is your fault, but not for the reasons you think. It's your fault because you don't haven't taken the time to understand your audience. Go talk to them for a while, and that's what we do now. That's why you guys see Azumi in there all the time because we want to talk to you guys. We want to know what you think. We want your feedback, and as part of what you just posted with the Astral ticket first class passenger thing, now we're going to do that a lot more. I mean, a lot more. You guys are going to get a lot more early previews into what we do because I need to get that feedback. Hey, is this what you like? Are you enjoying this? We've had backers just send us messages now like, hey, this is the kind of characters I like. And like, oh yeah, that character looks pretty good. Or like, this is interesting. Okay, we'll keep that into account and we can move forward with other things. And sometimes we can't, sometimes we can't. I've gotten some very out there images from backers on Kickstarter for things they like, or people on Twitter send us like, hey, can you do a character like this? And it be like something that I cannot do. Like that, I'm not allowed to do that one. No, that's sorry.
Fair enough. Anyways, we passed the hour 20 mark. All right, we'll go to the lightning round question. So, okay, what's your favorite word? That's gonna be the
That's a
first one.
hard. It's probably the F word 'cause I use that every other word when I'm not in front of a camera. So it's probably gonna be that one because it's easy. It's you. Stanley had a whole thing about it. It's universally useful. That word has so many applications. It doesn't. I mean, technically, its true definition means to have sex with, but that's not how it's used most of the time. You
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
somebody to you can tell somebody to f off. You're not saying to go have sex off. You're kind of making a nonsensical insult, but we all take it to heart anyways for some reason.
yeah. Fair enough. All right.
Especially if I'm working on the scripts and stuff, it's just a constant slew of me curse. That's how I work. It's that
Fair,
word like on loop with anything I'm working on.
fair enough. What profession other than your own would you attempt?
CEO of a big company. Apparently, you don't have to do anything. You just make money. That sounds great.
So
Just
Jeff Bezos.
CEO of a tech company. Apparently, you don't have to do anything ever. You never show up to work. You don't do anything. You just get paid. That sounds great. I could just do that. And but I would take that money and I would try to help.
Fair enough.
At
Fair
least try
enough.
to do something good with it.
What are you not very good at?
Everything.
Hey.
My problem that I run into that I don't understand.
Hmm.
Like a great example. The first time I paid for an advertisement on Facebook many years ago before all the craziness. It was of Eric Chen's Acura cover of Kabisi #4. Eric Chen, part of Archerum's team, fantastic artist, amazing dude, love him, great guy. Um, and I put that out there, and I'll never forget one of the comments I saw was WTF furry Acura. First off, Ears in the Tail is not furry. Thank you very much. The furries will kill you if you argue that, at least the ones I know. Second, I can't get my head around what convinces you take the time, click on something, and type that in and hit enter. I can't get my head around that. People do it all the time. I don't understand that. That and in real life, I'm just not a very personable person. I'm really kind of an isolationist. I like to be away from people. I don't really want to be in crowds or groups. I don't even go. I used to go to cons for fun. I was younger, older me, not as much. Don't really like. I don't like being up front. That's my weakness. I don't like being up front. That's why Azumi exists. Why Brooke exists. That's why Sally is there sometimes because they can do that. They're good at that. I'm not. So my weakness is I'm not good at those things. But I guess the counterpoint to that is I'm at least strong enough to realize what I can't do and work with people who can make up for those because you're more powerful in a team than you are by yourself. Apes together strong and all that.
I don't know. Tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees you.
You should
Oh, that's
all be buying my comics. It's a tough one. Well, I can do one. So I grew up grew up outdoor, fishing, hunting. I knew how to clean an animal before I could know how to ride a.
yeah.
So that was a normal part of life when people do not realize the healing power of nature. And what I mean is, man, humans can come in and modify an area. And after like 5 or 10 years, nature has adapted to that. But then the people will come in and want to change it to back the way it used to be. Well, now you're going to destroy the new environment that's here. I'll use that. A lot of people argue about that. Like nature recovers faster than I think it does. And if you mess with it again, you're going to trigger the recovery cycle all over again. Just don't touch it. Step back.
It's like when you're like cleaning the house and they're like, oh no, I messed it up, and then like, okay, no, don't worry.
Followed by the fact that foxes are terrible pets and you should not have them as a pet. They are
Fair.
actually one of the worst pets you will ever have. They are impossible to house train. They will urinate on everything. They are hyper intelligent, so they will destroy, chew, and annihilate everything in their path. Just get a
Okay.
cat or a dog.
All right. Room, desk, and car. Which do you clean first?
Which one? What is it again?
Room, desk, or car?
Room, desk, or car? It's going to be desk because that's where I do most of my work. The room
Uh,
is, but I just sleep in there. The car is, I drive an old work truck, man. It's just designed to be an old working man's truck, and that's all it needs. I never
huh.
bought into I got to have the brand new Mercedes. Why? Why am I going to spend $60,000 on a car that the instant somebody bumps into it loses all value?
Yep.
I'm good. It's not practical
Uh,
enough for me.
fair, fair. What is your favorite Wikipedia
All
article?
of a sudden, the gentleman who wrote the original creator of Conan, the name suddenly escapes me. I like his article a lot. It's
Okay.
depressing, very depressing. For those who don't
Aw.
know, he created Conan, which is still a legendary name to this day. Back in the 30s, and he died of suicide, which
Oh.
is a very common death for creators. Drug overdose, alcohol overdose, or suicide are extremely common deaths for creative people throughout history and even today. But I like that article because it kind of reminds me what I'm fighting, like to stop that kind of stuff. And I'm a huge fan of Conan, how cool, and some of the lines Conan has. I'm jealous I didn't think of them.
Invisibility or super strength?
Super strength easily.
Super Mario Brothers or Zelda?
And that's like trying to say booty or breasts. Like, I mean, they're both really good. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. Uh, I mean, I will argue to my dying breath that Ocarina of Time, not my favorite game, but is the best video game ever made. No contest. That game is everything beautiful and perfect, minus the water temple. It's amazing.
Okay.
Again, water levels usually aren't that great. That being
Uh,
said, I mean, Mario is probably the most iconic video game character to ever live, so it's kind of hard to argue with that too.
Fair enough. And
Also, the
finally,
savior of the game industry.
yeah, it's true. And finally, cape or no cape?
Never, never a cape. Never a cape. That's such a terrible idea. That's just as if you've anyone who thinks a cape is a good idea, come to the gym and take some boxing or fighting classes. Anything someone can grab onto is a massive weakness. You don't want that. There is a reason. I realize that this has like been very sexified, and sure, but when you see like Taki in Soul Calibur or the ninjas in anime, the girls are wearing these skin tight outfits, like just like they're just like glued to their skin. That's yeah, it's sexy, but that's also like the smartest thing ever because no one has anything to grab. They can't grab your clothes and pull on it. There's nothing to get. Also, you can move way easier. But
I
no cape.
just reminds me of the Incredibles as well.
There was, I think it's in The Watchmen. Alan Moore's The Watchmen. One of the characters gets killed because his cape gets stuck in a revolving door
Oh no!
and he can't move. So the bad guys just blast him because he can't go anywhere. Like
I
that,
remember that.
terrible idea. Unless you're Superman, who's almost impervious to all damage to begin with, I wouldn't wear a cape. I think John Stewart the Green Lantern was right. And you just a suit, bodysuit, and you're good to go. Man, you don't need anything else.
Fair
Unless
enough.
maybe I need armor. A character may need that, but that's different.
Fair enough. So we all good there, Professor?
Yep.
All right. Anything you want to say before we sign off there, Isaac?
Yeah, if anybody out there, you guys pick up like I don't care if it's independent comics, indie video games, whatever. I just want to say thank you. Even if it's not me, you're backing on Kickstarter, or if you go to like Steam and buy indie games, you go looking for indie comics on like Global Comics, wherever. Thank you, because the reality of it is, we all like Shonen Jump and Marvel, and if you buy that, half the time you're buying some of the yacht. If you buy Promisi, if you buy Jazz, or you buy Steak, you are actually putting food on our table. And I've been saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it. When you back one of our comics, I don't make superhero comics, and the reason I don't is because you, the guys who buy it, you are the superhero of my comics. So thank you.
And I'll
I
still.
can be nice when the camera's on. As soon as it's off, it just total 180 in personality.
I'll still support your work as well. I love your work.
I do appreciate that. I really do.
I wish
Thank you.
it's and I wish it's for bigger successes in the long run. I wish more Kremisi. I will
So
check.
I hate to tell you, but Kermesi's on a mini hiatus.
Ah, no, I know.
Not because of anything negative, but because the other series we have are just all in progress.
Yeah.
Succubus's next arc is being done right now by
Mhm.
Neela Fox, who is in charge of Kermesi now, following Sayoko's retirement from comics. And then Krius, who's my chief, or he's my now my chief artist and chief colorist,
Mm.
and everybody else is pretty much exclusively working right now on the Manticore's issues. That book isn't even out yet. What? 5 issues of it are currently in production. So
We'll
we're
hear more of
moving
them.
we
Sorry.
will see it again, but right now the focus is on getting a couple of new things up and going and kind of now with Pure Intent done, we need to like kind of get our footing into the hill that is Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get a new thing in there. And Succubus number 4 is supposed to come out at the end of this year. That's the end of the first arc. It was never intended to go past that, but it's popular. People ask for more. Says, well, yeah, I have no story we can do with these characters, absolutely. But that does mean that there's a void in what else is going to come out. We try to put out 3 a year. Realistically, that's hard to do for me. I know some guys who put out like 10, 20 Kickstarter comics a year. There's guys out there who run like 5 campaigns at once on multiple accounts. I don't know how you do it. I mean, Foxy Vacations was how long ago? And you still see that's still out in my office because time. Uh, Realistically, I can do about 3 a year. So,
Fair
well,
enough.
probably maybe 2. Hopefully this year we can do 3, but we'll see.
All right. Anyways, on that note, of our episode for this week,
Boop.
you guys can find us Instagram, uh, TikTok, Facebook, X, or every other social media and all your platform. And you can also where can they also find you, Isaac, for your
I am everywhere. We are on everything now. We have, for the most part, abandoned Twitter. We have an account there still, but I stepped away from that. And before anybody gets too crazy about it, I will tell you why. It's very simple. Because when we go to tag artists on there, if they haven't paid Twitter money, you can't find them on Twitter at all. It won't pull them up. It will not look for them. It can't even tag them. It won't say their account exists. We have to go into Google, type in the Twitter handle, and then find them through the Google search engine to then find them. And I
uh,
don't want artists treated that way. I very much want to take care of them. My goal is my artists live in mansions and I'll live in a cabin. That's what I want. Uh, so you can find us on there. Most of it's going to be, what is it again? What are we? Yeah, I should know this, but I don't. AT Foxy Comics on most things. That's Foxy with 2 X's, not 3, because we aren't that kind of company unless you want to rise a big enough check. But until that moment, we're on Instagram with the same account. We're on Brooke runs our, so Instagram is Azumi, Facebook is Azumi. Brooke handles our Instagram, which is the same, or I'm sorry, Blue Sky now, which we're liking Blue Sky so far. Same thing, AT Foxy Comics. You can find us on Kickstarter, which is not social media, but it's a social platform at Astral Ticket. We also have a fan Discord server that anybody over the 18 can come into. If you're not 18, you cannot come in.
anyways, stay happy and see you guys.
Look after
Oh yeah,
yourselves and stay hydrated.